Last summer was a weird time for me. I was 22 and babysitting to help pay for college. I thought it would be fun. I had done it before and I felt confident. The neighborhood was safe and quiet. But what happened last summer still creeps me out. One night I was babysitting the Smiths' 3-year-old. After cleaning up some toys, I went to the kitchen. It was so peaceful, just the sound of water running. Suddenly I felt a chill. I thought it was just a draft. When I walked back into the living room, I nearly froze. The toys were scattered everywhere. I had left them in a neat pile. I figured the little one must have done it. Kids can be unpredictable, right? Weeks later, I babysat the Johnson's twins. They were cute and funny. One of them started telling me about an imaginary friend named Mila. I didn't think much of it. Kids have wild imaginations. But then the other twin chimed in, saying things about Mila that made my heart race. They talked about her like she was real. I felt a little uneasy but brushed it off. I told myself I was just tired. Then I got a job with the Thompsons. Their house was big and quiet. I was sitting on the couch, the TV buzzing softly. I thought I saw a shadow move in the hallway. I turned to look, but it was just dark. My heart raced a bit. I told myself it was nothing. Kids can be scary sometimes, right? I shook my head and focused back on the TV. The final job was with the Martins. Their little girl insisted that a boy named Eddie was in her room. I laughed it off and told her it was her imagination. But later, I swear I heard footsteps upstairs. The house was silent except for that soft tapping sound. I paused, hoping it was nothing. A cold breeze swept through the living room. I thought I should check on her. So I went slowly upstairs. She was fast asleep. I felt relieved. But as I walked back down, it got harder to breathe. It felt like something was watching me. I pushed the strange feelings aside. Maybe I just had a wild imagination. But deep down, I began to wonder. Those kids had all told me odd stories. Were they just playing, or was there something more? Just as I was about to leave, I heard a child's voice whispering. I spun around, but no one was there. I felt my heart drop. Was I imagining things? I stood frozen for a moment, and then I hurried out of that house. I still think about those nights. They felt so odd. I don't think I'll ever understand them. Something was off. I don't know what it was, but the uncertainty still haunts me. What really happened? I have no answers. And maybe that scares me the most. The days passed after that last job. I thought it would be good to take a break from babysitting. The memories flared up every time I saw a familiar house in the neighborhood. I started avoiding those streets. But after a couple of weeks, I needed money for school. I got a call from Mrs. Daniels, a new family in town. She seemed friendly, and her voice was warm. I agreed to babysit for them without a second thought. The day of the job, I felt a mix of excitement and nerves. I hoped this time would be different. When I arrived, the house was charming, with bright colors and a lovely garden. Their little boy, Oliver, was 5. He welcomed me with a huge smile. I thought he would be easy to entertain. We played games in the living room. Everything felt normal until the lights flickered. I grinned, thinking it was just the old wiring. After dinner, I took him to bed. He seemed a bit too quiet for a 5-year-old. As I tucked him in, I noticed a strange picture hanging on the wall. It was a family portrait, but the expression on the parents' faces looked off. I didn't dwell on it. Kids' rooms could have weird decor, right? I left the room, crossing my fingers for a peaceful night. I settled on the couch, trying to relax. But soon I started hearing whispers, soft and childish. At first I thought it was just Oliver talking in his sleep, but then the whispers grew clearer. They sounded like a conversation, 2 children talking. I sat up, startled. I glanced down the hallway. Was it just my imagination? I rubbed my eyes and strained to listen. The whispers grew louder. They had an eerie quality, like they were calling someone. I hesitated but decided to check on Oliver. I tiptoed down the hall. my heart racing. As I reached the door, I paused. Should I knock? The whispers stopped abruptly. I knocked lightly and opened the door. Oliver was in bed, sound asleep. I breathed a sigh of relief. But then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. His toys were arranged in a circle around him. I had left everything tidy. There was no way he could have done that in his sleep. Panic surged through me. Had someone else been in the room? I quickly left, closing the door gently behind me. Back in the living room, I debated calling Mrs. Daniels, but I didn't want to sound crazy. The kitchen clock ticked loudly, making the silence more pronounced. Just as I was about to calm myself down, I heard a faint laugh. It was high-pitched and echoing through the hallway. I gripped the couch armrest, a cold sweat forming on my back. Then the laughter faded, followed by a soft thud. I felt like I was frozen in place. I had to know what was happening. Slowly I stood and edged toward the sound. But when I got to the hallway, everything was still. That's when I saw it. One of Oliver's toys was lying at the end of the hall, far from his room. It wasn't just any toy. It was a small figure of a girl I hadn't seen before. As I reached for it, I felt the air around me thickening, like I was in a dream that I couldn't wake up from. What was going on? My heart raced again. I picked up the toy, fingers trembling. Who was this girl? And why did it feel like something was creeping closer? I couldn't shake the feeling that I had walked into something deeper than just babysitting. Then suddenly the lights went out. I froze. Darkness enveloped me entirely, and the familiar sounds of the house faded into an eerie silence. I could barely see anything, not even my own hand in front of my face. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to remember where the furniture lay, wishing I hadn't let myself get so deep into this babysitting gig. I fumbled for my phone, desperate for the light it could provide. My fingers slipped over the screen, and my breath caught when I saw the flash illuminate the hallway. The shadows danced angrily on the walls, twisting and turning. I didn't like how they moved. "Oliver!" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. No answer. I took a hesitant step forward, chasing away the chill that crawled up my spine. Then I heard it again, the laughter, now closer. I swung my gaze towards the source, but the darkness swallowed everything. Just then my phone buzzed and lit up with a message. It was from Mrs. Daniels. "Everything okay? Just checking in." I hurriedly typed back, "Lights went out. I'm fine." I didn't want to worry her, but did I really know that I was fine? With no immediate response, I focused on the noise instead. The laughter turned into soft giggles, almost playful, and I felt anger surge through me. Whatever was going on, it was wrong. My instinct told me to go back to Oliver's room, but another wave of goosebumps washed over me. As I stepped further into the hallway, I felt something brush against my leg. I jolted back and aimed my phone downward. It was the little girl figure I had seen earlier. Somehow it had ended up at my feet, almost as if it was waiting for me. I bent down to pick it up, but it felt unusually warm in my hand. "Why are you here?" I whispered to the toy, my voice shaking. A sudden chill enveloped me, and I could have sworn I heard a faint voice respond. It was a girl's voice, soft and melodic. "Play with us." Instantly panic coursed through my veins. I took a step back, the phone's glow revealing two shadowy figures at the end of the hall. I squinted, my breath quickening as the shadows morphed into children. They looked like Oliver and the girl from the toy, a laughing pair holding hands. "Who are you?" I tried to sound brave, but my voice cracked. They didn't answer. Instead, they beckoned me forward with their tiny hands, their smiles wide and unnatural. "No," I shouted, taking another step back. My body screamed at me to run, but I felt pinned in place, caught in a web of fear. The giggles rang louder, echoing off the walls, and I gripped the toy tighter. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on. My vision cleared, and I saw them clearly. Oliver was standing in his doorway, eyes wide, watching me. The second child, a girl, vanished into thin air like smoke. "Oliver," I called, relief flooding through me. But he didn't respond. Instead, he stepped forward, looking at me with a strange expression. "Will you play with us?" he asked, his voice chillingly calm. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out, because I realized in that moment I wasn't sure who he was anymore. I stood frozen, staring at Oliver, trying to read his expression. It was like he wasn't quite himself. Memories of the laughter echoed in my mind, and the warmth of the toy felt now like a burning reminder of the chilling dance I had just witnessed. "Oliver," I said again, forcing my voice to remain steady. "What are you talking about? Did you see?" "Play with us," he repeated, tilting his head slightly, like he was mimicking something he'd heard before. There was an eerie light in his eyes that made every hair on my body stand on end. "Where's the other girl?" I asked, barely above a whisper. In my gut, I knew something wasn't right. A sinking feeling twisted inside me, like I was slipping into an abyss. He didn't answer. I took a small step back, trying to create distance. Panic threatened to bubble over. I was in a dark hallway with a child who seemed not quite right, and I had lost sight of what was supposed to be safe. From behind me, I heard the sound of tiny footsteps pattering toward us. I spun around, phone held high, but there was nothing there. Just the quiet of the house enveloping me again. When I turned back to Oliver, he was only a few steps closer, a faint smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Let's play hide and seek," he suggested, voice still unnervingly calm. I could hardly believe my ears. "It'll be fun." "No, I don't think that's a good idea," I said firmly, backing away again. "Maybe we should go back to your room." My heart raced as realization set in. If I didn't act quickly, things could get even worse. "Why not? You'll find me," he said, voice dripping with a sugary innocence that only deepened my terror. It dawned on me that the other child may not have been merely an illusion. We always play together. With shaky fingers, I texted Mrs. Daniels again, quickly typing, "Need you to come home." I hit send just as the lights began to flicker again. My pulse quickened. I knew I had to keep Oliver in sight. "Okay, but you need to stay close," I said, trying to sound more reassuring than I felt. "Let's go find your toys. Stay with me." As we moved down the hallway, his energy changed. I could sense that something was wrong, too wrong. Behind us, the air felt different. It thickened, and my skin crawled as I heard that laughter again, slightly muffled but unmistakably there. Then I saw something dart behind the nearest wall. A flicker of movement. My heart dropped. "Oliver, stay close," I shouted, hastening my steps. But when I looked at him, he was staring into the corner of the room, his expression one of naive wonder. I reached for his hand, but he simply smiled. "She wants to play with you." The shadows danced again, the laughter growing louder as the girl's figure reappeared, ghostly and translucent. I stumbled back, trying to pull Oliver with me, but he wouldn't budge. That's when I knew I had lost him. Before I could process that, the lights flickered out again, plunging us back into darkness. Panic set in, and I felt the cold air sweep around us. Someone was in the house, and they wanted more than just a game. "Oliver," I cried, my voice echoing in the suffocating silence. That's when I heard the whispers, a chorus of soft, sweet voices rising from the darkness. It was then I realized I wasn't just babysitting anymore, I was trapped. I fumbled for my phone, hoping the light would pierce the black around me. But the screen remained dark. No service. My heart raced as shadows pooled around my feet, wrapping me in a suffocating embrace. I was alone, yet the whispers grew louder, echoing around the room like a melodic taunt. "Oliver?" I called again, but my voice sounded weak, swallowed by the void. I strained my ears, hoping for a response, any sign he was still near. The laughter was no longer just echoing, it was swirling like a sinister dance, pulling at my senses. I took a cautious step forward, my pulse hammering. "We need to find your mom. She's coming home soon." I could barely maintain my composure as I stumbled through the darkness. "Let's go to your room." Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't just leave Oliver behind. The thought of something sinister lurking just out of sight gripped me with fear. I steadied my breathing. "Stay with me, Oliver. It's not safe to play anymore." But no answer came. Only that faint, chilling laughter continued to haunt my ears. I squinted into the dark, praying to catch a glimpse of him. I thought I saw something flicker to my left, a shadow darting just beyond the line of sight. "Please just show yourself," I shouted, hoping to break the spell of darkness that clung to me. And then I felt it. A cold touch, as if icy fingers brushed against my arm. I jerked back, panic crashing over me. I turned, my heart racing as I swung my phone around, searching for any sign of movement, but nothing was there. Just shadows clinging to the corners of the room like dark secrets. Suddenly, all went quiet. The laughter faded, leaving a heavy silence. I decided I had to move, had to get out. With no light, I made my way back toward where I remembered the stairs to be. My feet felt clumsy and awkward as I walked, afraid the floorboards might give way. That's when I tripped over something low to the ground. I fell, catching myself just in time. My hands landed on something soft and plush. A toy? Disoriented, I picked it up. It was a doll, one I could have sworn I'd seen before. Long hair and a pink dress, eyes that seemed to follow me. The same exact doll I'd seen in Oliver's room earlier, the one he loved to play with. As I clutched it, a new voice broke the silence, a child's giggle trickling through the air. It sounded right next to my ear, sending a fresh wave of dread coursing through me. I spun around again, but there was no one there except the swirling shadows. "Oliver!" I shouted, and chaos erupted in the dark. Sounds of scurrying footsteps echoed, mixing with the child's laughter. It sounded like more than one voice, shrill and gleeful, closing in on me. My heart dropped as the reality hit. I wasn't alone, and what was supposed to be a simple babysitting job had turned into a nightmare. A dread washed over me. I had to find Oliver and fast before the darkness fully consumed us. I rushed down the hall, fueled by a desperate need to protect him. Suddenly, everything around me shifted. Walls seemed to shift and change, and I struggled to keep my bearings. In that moment of disorientation, I caught sight of a flickering light at the end of the hallway. I sprinted toward it, driven by the hope that maybe it was an exit. But just as I reached it, the light extinguished. Stumbling, I could only hear the laughter now, echoing in the thick darkness, a cacophony like a chorus. I felt as though I was being pulled further into the nightmare. I was so close to finding Oliver, but I had no idea what awaited me next. I pushed forward, my hands reaching out to steady myself against the wall. The darkness pressed in, and the disembodied laughter danced around me, taunting and teasing. I shook my head, trying to clear the chaos swirling in my mind. I needed to focus. My first goal was to find Oliver. I thought of his small hands, his innocent smile, and the way he'd tugged at my sleeve earlier, excited for our night together. But now I could feel something had changed. The air was thick. It was hard to breathe. "Oliver," I called again, straining to listen over the laughter. My voice was trembling, sounding weak even to my own ears. I had to sound braver for him. As I edged deeper into the dimness, I heard a muffled sound come from behind a door, more laughter, but this time it was joined by Oliver's voice. It filled me with a mix of relief and fear. I rushed towards it, my heart pounding in my chest. I grasped the doorknob, my fingers trembling as I felt a tingle run up my spine. I twisted it down, but the door refused to budge. A heavy weight pressed against it from the other side. "Oliver!" I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. Can you hear me? Are you in there? The laughter suddenly stopped, plunging me back into that heavy silence. My breath caught in my throat, and I pressed my ear against the door. Nothing. Just the oppressive stillness. Then, unexpectedly, the door rattled. It felt as if something was banging against it, trying to break free. Adrenaline surged through me, and I pushed harder against it, willing it to open. The door finally gave, swinging wide. I stumbled into the room, but all I found was darkness. Oliver wasn't there, just more shadows and the silence that clung heavily, thicker than before. I backed away, panic swelling again. My eyes darted around the room, desperately searching for any sign of him. That's when I noticed a glint on the floor, a tiny silver object. I bent down, grasped it, and held it up to the dim light filtering through the window. A necklace, a charm shaped like a tiny doll. I felt a chill run down my spine. It was just like the doll I'd found earlier, the same one that had been abandoned on the floor. Had Oliver been playing with it? I dropped it, my skin crawling with unease. This isn't good, I whispered to myself. I squeezed my eyes shut. I need to find him. As I tried to gather my thoughts, the laughter returned, louder than before and mixed with what sounded like whispers. Come and play, they beckoned. We're waiting. Against my better judgment, I followed the sound, knowing it was a terrible mistake, yet unable to stop myself. Each step felt like I was being drawn into something deeper, darker. Then I spotted a flickering light again, this time coming from the kitchen. I hesitated. Trusting it could lead me to Oliver felt wrong, but staying in the oppressive darkness was terrifying too. I took a breath and moved quickly towards it. But as I approached the kitchen door, I heard a growl, a low and guttural sound that made my stomach drop. Please tell me I'm just imagining things, I thought as I slowly pushed the door open. That's when I saw it. A figure just inside the light, standing with its back turned to me. It was small, shorter than me. I prayed it was Oliver, but as the figure turned, the chilling recognition swept through me. It wasn't my charge. Who are you? I gasped, heart hammering wildly in my chest. The twisted smile that formed on the figure's lips made me realize just how deep I had fallen into this nightmare. The figure stepped forward, the flickering light revealing a twisted face that made my skin crawl. It was a child, but not like Oliver. This child's eyes glinted with something darker, something that stoked my fears. Are you lost? The figure asked, its voice dripping with a mocking sweetness that sent shivers down my spine. We've been waiting for you. My instincts screamed at me to run. I didn't recognize this child, and yet there was familiarity in the way it moved, as if I had crossed paths with this horror before. I took a step back, my mind racing to put together the pieces. Where's Oliver? I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. What have you done to him? The child's laughter echoed around the kitchen, sending a chill deep into my bones. He's with us now. We all play together, it said, gesturing behind it. I shifted my gaze into the shadows behind the figure, and my heart sank. I could see more children lurking there, their eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. They were watching me, waiting, and I could feel their intentions twist like the knife in my gut. Come join us, the first child said, stepping closer. It's so much fun, but you have to play by our rules. The way it smiled sent bile rising in my throat. I felt trapped, the walls closing in. I'm not playing anything, I said, stepping back with a firm resolve. I had to find Oliver. Suddenly the shadows shifted, and I felt a sharp tug at my heart. But you will, the child said. You've already started. I turned to escape, but my feet felt like lead. The laughter erupted again, filling the room with a cacophony that twisted my thoughts. I forced myself forward, pushing through the doorway, desperate to find a way out of this nightmare. I darted down the hallway, frantic, and the laughter grew fainter behind me. I quickly glanced back, noticing the figure standing in the kitchen doorway, its smile now wide and triumphant. Just as I reached the stairs leading downstairs, I heard a soft whimper. My heart shifted, hope and dread intertwining. "Oliver," I called, straining my ears to pinpoint the sound. "Help me." His tiny voice pierced through the darkness. It came from below. I raced down the steps, each creak beneath my feet echoing like a warning. The air thickened with anxiety as I reached the bottom. "Hang on. I'm coming." When I reached the landing, I stopped short. The basement door stood ajar, a dim light blinking within. I rushed toward it, but suddenly my phone buzzed in my pocket, startling me. I pulled it out and saw an unknown number flashing on the screen. I hesitated, the urgency of Oliver's voice overshadowed by dread about answering. What if it was them? My hands trembled as I swiped to answer, hoping for a connection to safety. "Who is it?" I asked, breathless and terrified. A distorted voice crackled on the other end. "You shouldn't have come here. You need to leave now." Everything inside me screamed to hang up and dive into the abyss of the basement, where Oliver's voice called. But before I could decide, the basement door slammed shut behind me, and darkness swallowed the corridor whole. I stood frozen, my heart racing, trapped in the darkness. Shadows flickered against the walls, and the air felt thick and oppressive. I whispered Oliver's name, my voice lost in the silence that followed. I had to get to him. I moved cautiously toward the basement door. My hand trembled as I reached for the knob, but it was locked tight, just as I had feared. The laughter from the children echoed once more, this time sharper, like jagged glass cutting through the quiet. They were playing, waiting for me to join their twisted game. "Oliver," I shouted, pounding on the door with my fists. Panic clawed at my throat. "I'm coming for you." Silence stretched out, hanging over me like a weight. But then I heard it again, a soft whimper just beyond the door. My instincts kicked in, and I dropped to the ground, pressing my ear against the cool wood. "Oliver, are you there?" I breathed. "Yes," he cried, his voice muffled and fragile. "Help!" I felt a surge of determination. I couldn't give up. I scrambled to find something to pry the door open, my fingers fumbling until they landed on a metal pipe lying against the wall. It would have to do. I wedged it against the door and pushed with all my might. With a loud crack, the door gave way, swinging open. The light from the basement spilled into the dim corridor, and I rushed inside. The basement was filled with discarded toys and old furniture, casting eerie shadows on the walls. "Oliver!" I called out, scanning the room. "Where are you?" A small figure emerged from the shadows, and relief flooded my chest. "Over here." His voice was weak, trembling. I rushed toward him, but the moment I stepped closer, the air grew cold, and the lights flickered again. "It's a trap." The distortion from earlier echoed inside my head. I froze, my skin prickling with dread. I turned slowly, and that's when I saw them. The children from the kitchen, their eyes glowing, now surrounding the room. "Welcome back," the twisted child said, stepping forward, its voice low and sinister. "You really shouldn't have come here." I backed away, scanning for an escape route. My throat felt tight. "Get away from him," I yelled. Oliver was huddled in a corner, his face pale and wide-eyed. I crouched down in front of him. "Stay behind me," I whispered, trying to summon all the courage I had left. "Join us," the children said in unison. Their voices blended into an unsettling melody that made my head spin. The walls around us began to pulse, the shadows drawing closer. I could feel the darkness surrounding me, threatening to pull me in. Then, amidst the escalating chaos, I noticed something glimmering next to Oliver. It was a small flashlight. "Take it," I shouted as I reached out towards him. "We can use it." Fear flickered in his eyes, but as he grabbed the flashlight, the children reacted, their laughter rising to a fever pitch. They lunged forward, but I grabbed Oliver's hand and sprinted toward the basement stairs. I raced up, the children's laughter echoing behind us, more furious now. Just as we reached the top, the door slammed shut, the sounds of their footsteps pounding behind us. "What do we do now?" Oliver whimpered, his grip tightening on my hand. "Find a way out," I said, scanning the hall for any escape. But then I saw it, a flash of movement in the hallway, and suddenly I wasn't sure we were alone any longer. I held my breath, my pulse echoing in my ears as I peered into the shadows of the hallway. The flickering lights overhead cast strange shapes, and my heart surged with anxiety. Something was definitely lurking just out of sight. "Did you see that?" I whispered to Oliver, not daring to take my eyes off the darkness. He nodded, his face a mask of fear. "Stay close," I instructed, pulling him even tighter against me. I took a step forward, my shoes squeaking against the wooden floor. Every creak echoed through the silence, and I felt the weight of unseen eyes on us. We moved cautiously down the hallway, the flashlight's beam cutting through the gloom. Suddenly, I spotted a door partially ajar at the end of the corridor. "This way," I said urgently. I could feel the tension coiling inside me like a snake ready to strike. As we approached, a chill brushed against the back of my neck. I hesitated. What if it's a trap? Oliver's voice trembled behind me. "No, we need to check it," I replied, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. The laughter of the children still echoed in my head, twisting around my thoughts. With a deep breath, I pushed the door open. Inside was a small, cluttered office filled with dusty papers and old pictures on the walls. The room smelled stale, and a large desk sat in the center. The papers were scattered, as if someone had rifled through them in a hurry. I turned on the flashlight, and the beam illuminated a photo pinned to the wall. My breath caught in my throat. The picture showed a group of children, but not just any children, the same ones I had seen downstairs. They were smiling, their eyes bright, but something felt off. My instincts screamed danger. "Look," I said, pointing to the photo. "They were here before. They've done this before." Oliver's gaze widened, and I could see the realization sinking in. "They're not just playing games," he mumbled, shaking with fear. The door slammed shut behind us, making us both jump. I spun around. "What was that?" I whispered, panic rising again. "Maybe they're out there," Oliver exclaimed, his voice rising. I stepped back, my heart racing, but before I could respond, the shadows in the room began to shift. I could see dark figures forming at the edges of the flashlight's beam, looming in the corners. One of them took a step forward, and I felt the breath leave my lungs. Then I remembered the flashlight in Oliver's hand. "No matter what happens, keep it pointed at them," I instructed grimly. With wide eyes, he nodded. I took a few shaky steps back to the desk, scanning desperately for anything I could use to defend us. That's when I saw it, a small, sharp letter opener gleaming in the light. My fingers closed around it as I turned to face whatever was coming toward us. The shadows twisted again, and through the darkness I heard their voices chant in low, mocking tones. "Come play with us. It's so much fun." The light began to flicker, and the temperature in the room dropped suddenly. I took a step forward, bracing for the worst. Then everything went dark. My heart raced as the darkness engulfed us. My fingers tightened around the letter opener, and I could hear Oliver's quickened breathing beside me. We were trapped. I wanted to scream, but the air felt heavy with dread, pressing down on me like a weight. "Just hold the light steady," I whispered to him, hoping my own fear wouldn't seep into his resolve. "We can't let them get too close." The room was so quiet that I could hear the faint, chilling rustle of their movements in the dark, like whispers in a restless night. A low, sinister giggle echoed off the walls, making my skin crawl. Then I saw it, a flicker of movement near the edge of the beam. Shadows shape-shifted, almost human, almost alive. "What are you?" I cried, trying to sound brave. "Leave us alone." The shadows paused, and for a moment I felt a stillness that made the air feel electric. But then laughter erupted, breaking the silence as one of the figures lunged forward, a warped little face staring back at us with glee. Panic surged within me. "Oliver, back up." I pulled him closer, trying to shield him. Suddenly, the flashlight flickered again, and in that fleeting moment of light, I saw the faces of the children, the same children from the photo on the wall, but twisted and malformed in ways that didn't belong on any living being. Shadows rippled behind them, as if they were the embodiment of the darkness itself. "Play with us," they sang, their voices overlapping in an eerie harmony, a melody once innocent but corrupted into something that chilled my blood. I held the letter opener tightly, unsure of what I could do with it against whatever this was. Then, an idea struck me. "Oliver, on the count of 3, we run for that door." I pointed to the far side of the room where I could just make out the outline of another exit. He nodded, fear in his eyes but determination in his stance. 1, 2, 3. We bolted together, the flashlight leading the way, our feet pounding against the floor, drowning out the laughter that rose behind us. But as we approached the door, invisible arms reached from the shadows, trying to snare us, pulling at my clothes and tugging at Oliver's limbs. Every ounce of willpower pushed me through. "Open! Open!" I screamed, forcing the door with every breath and ounce of strength. It swung free, light flooding in, and we stumbled out into the hallway. I turned to pull the door shut behind us, but the shadows lashed out, wrapping around the frame. "Hold it!" I shouted to Oliver, and he pressed his small body against the door as I fought against the darkness. Fragile fingers of despair wrapping tighter and tighter, until, with a colossal effort, I yanked the door closed and locked it. Breathless, hearts pounding, we found ourselves in the hallway. Light flickered overhead, casting strange shadows on the walls. "We did it," I breathed, the surge of victory tinged with uncertainty. But a twinge of something dark hung in the air, and before we could breathe a sigh of relief, we heard it. A thud that echoed from behind the door. They were still there. The children's giggles mixed with sorrow, rising like a haunting melody. "What do we do now?" Oliver whimpered, and I felt the weight of his fear crushing my resolve. It was almost comforting to know we had escaped for a moment, but those shadows would never just let us go. "The front door," I said, taking Oliver's hand. "We need to find the front door and get out of here." We raced down the hall, stepping faster despite the whispers trailing behind us, weaving through the darkness like a rope binding us to our worst fears. The flickering light felt like it was failing us, and every step echoed louder through the house, as if pleading for help. "Just a little further," I encouraged, forcing courage to seep through my voice. But as we turned the corner, we spotted a figure. The girl from the toy, her twisted smile no longer playful but haunting. She stood blocking the path, arms outstretched, giggling in a way that sent shivers cascading down my spine. Before I could react, the hall darkened again, the shadows pooling around us, and fear gripped my heart anew. "Run, Oliver," I yelled, our escape momentarily forgotten. I felt the coldness cradling me, whispering secrets, tugging at my mind, but something in me screamed against it. We darted past the girl, the laughter echoing after, filling the empty spaces of the house with life. I turned briefly, my pulse racing, wondering whether this nightmare could ever end. But behind me, the shadows loomed, an uncertain mass, a swirling mystery of laughter and despair. Just as we approached the front door, I heard it, the soft giggle, the murmur of countless voices beckoning behind us. The echoes followed like a shadow, a constant reminder that we could never truly escape. With one final push, I flung the door wide open, bursting into the fresh night air, the coolness washing over us like a wave of relief. The weight on my chest lifted. For a moment, we were free. I could hear the laughter pursuing, fading as we stepped off the porch and into the safety of the streetlight. but my heart still pounded. Was this truly over, or was it just a pause in the game? "Are we safe?" Oliver asked, his small frame shaking as he looked up at me. I knelt down, meeting his gaze, feeling the gravity of that moment settle heavy upon us. "Yes," I replied. But inside, I felt the doubt creeping in. I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows would always lurk close by, waiting for the next time someone would brave the gates of that house. And as I led Oliver away from that house, I couldn't help but wonder, was it the children who haunted that place, or something deeper, more sinister? The answer slipped through my fingers like sand, and I wasn't sure I wanted it to surface again. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if the Daniels still live in that house, if the whispers and laughter still fill the air. But mostly I try not to think about it, even as the shadows follow me in my dreams. What truly happened that night? I guess I'll never know.